Hey everybody, welcome to Spill the Novelty, where three girlies shout into the void about our latest book hot takes and obsessions. I'm Abby.
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
And this week we're spilling the tea about none other than Fourth Wing, the new adult fantasy novel by Rebecca Yarros. This book has been selling out everywhere and has caused a lot of chaos and swooning on Bookstagram and Book Talk, which we're sure you all are familiar with. But if you somehow escaped the Welcome to Fourth Wing audio on TikTok, here's the tea.
All right, so to catch you guys up, for anyone who hasn't read the book, Fourth Wing follows the story of Violet, who was a scribe, which is basically a historian, but her mom, who's a general, forces her to join the Writer's Quadrant, which is where you learn how to become a dragon writer. And then the first thing she has to do is cross the parapet, which is a really thin wall. And she meets her friend Rhiannon, who becomes, her close friend. And she also meets Xaden, her super hot sworn enemy. His dad was a rebel who allegedly murders Violet's brother. And then Violet's mom kills Xaden's father. So sworn enemies. And then after she beats the parapet, she arrives at Basgiath War College and runs into Dane, who is her childhood best friend, and she thinks she's in love with him. We hate Dane.
Yeah. Retweet.
She goes through lots of trials to become a dragon rider, which involves lots of combat training, and she has her own little twist on that, which we'll talk about later.
And then she goes into the threshing, which is where she basically is chosen by a dragon. But what's really cool is that she's chosen by not one, but two dragons, which is Taryn and Adarna. Taryn is this really big, powerful dragon, and Adarna is this sweet little baby dragon. And another twist is that Xaden and Violet's dragons are mated. So as Xaden and Violet work together more, they can't resist each other and end up falling in love because... Of course they do.
Naturally.
Naturally.
And then we have War Games, which they think is going to be just like your standard trial for the school, but it ends up being a real battle. And there's a lot of spice to go along with that, so we'll leave that for later. But at the very end of the novel, Violet finds out that her long-lost dead brother is actually alive, and he is at the revolution. And so he says to her, "Welcome to the revolution." And that's where the book ends.
And everyone loses their shit collectively.
Yep.
So
very that.
Yeah. Okay, so first let's talk about characters, and we'll start with our girl Violet. So what did you guys think of Violet right out the gate?
I really liked Violet right out of the gate. I love an underdog personally, and she really had to work to succeed at the school. She had to be very clever and kind of problem solve her way through a lot of things, which I just think is very fun for a main character.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I really love too is that not only did she really have to work hard her entire time at Basgiath, but her scribe background was really well written. And I feel like sometimes backgrounds and kind of background motivators and things like that aren't really fleshed out. I really love Divergent, of course, growing up. And I think that there are some people who draw some connections between some of the vibes of this book and Divergent. And granted, it was YA, but there are moments where I didn't feel like Triss was kind of as well fleshed out as a character like Violet, where you can really see a lot of those kind of motivations and kind of backstories coming into play with her character growth.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I really liked how just smart she was, kind of jumping off y'all's points. She uses poison whenever she has to spar other people. Just light poison, not enough to kill them, but enough to make them sick or pass out or
Tasteful
something like
poison.
It's a little treat.
Yeah.
A little snack.
For example, when she has to fight her enemy, Jack, who is super annoying. Yeah.
Gross.
She uses oranges because she knows that he's highly allergic to them. So she puts oranges in his food or something in that morning, and so he can't fight her. She also cheats during the gauntlet, which we'll talk about the gauntlet later. But it's a big. There's oh gosh, that was so bad.
No, yeah,
No,
I mean
good.
it's just fancy Wipeout, basically.
Yeah.
Glorified Wipeout.
Yeah.
So yeah, she cheats. She's really cunning. And like I love too that like when she's poisoning and things like that, like she has to do a lot of like almost like research. Like she's just very attentive to kind of find out like her enemy's weaknesses, which is really interesting.
Yeah, she's super observant. So she's always paying attention and kind of like taking notes and logging how everyone is acting and how they're reacting, so that she can use it against them potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, you're good. I was just going to say, like, I think that her kind of backstory too or like her dynamic with her family really makes her a super interesting character too, which I'm sure is going to be set up throughout the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she also has a huge disadvantage in general because she has a disability, which is something that's only lightly touched on, but like it changes the color of her hair and makes the ends silver, and she goes through a lot of pain throughout the book, which is lightly mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So she's constantly in pain and having to deal with that, which makes her a really like interesting, well-rounded character. It also makes her more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so what about Dane? What did you guys think about Violet's relationship with Dane, especially before you know that Xaden's a love interest?
Okay, so here's the thing.
I was about to say, I'm Maddie. Come on, queen.
I'm a Dane sympathizer. Okay, I really liked Dane in the beginning. I love the like childhood friends to lovers arc. I love that he was like super protective of her in the beginning because she needed that. Straight up, literally, whatever Dane does in the end, she would not have survived if she didn't have him in the beginning. She would not have made it. She needs a lot of support because she is such an underdog. So, but obviously he just ends up like losing his damn mind, and he is very much like an ick throughout. Definitely like the latter half of the book is he's like fully ick. Like there's not even like a question. But initially I did like him, and I thought it made sense that she thought she was in love with him. Like I get it.
I think that's so interesting because I thought that at first, like the very first time she meets him, but he becomes so like clingy and constantly forcing the idea that she has to go back to being a scribe. Like he's like, no, you've got to go back. I made a deal with someone so you can go back to being a scribe and things like that. And he's so forceful about it. And I think that's when I started to just get the major ick from him.
Yeah. I think that's when it kind of starts crossing that line of like, is he protective of her because he cares about her and like what she wants and what she needs? Or is it just because like he likes to have that sense of control, and even if it's subconscious, you know? So no, I agree. I like the idea of her having a friend there who could care for her and watch her, but I don't know. From the get-go, I wasn't a fan, but I hear you. I like a childhood friends to lovers arc, but I was not about it.
He was not it. And he also, I don't know, he had this ability, I don't know if you guys noticed this throughout the book, but he had this ability where he can touch somebody and see kind of not their thoughts. He can see like what has happened to them recently. And so he touches her a lot throughout the book. I noticed this the second time I read it.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys noticed it too.
I did not notice it at all the first time. But the second read through, it's literally every single time he goes to talk to her, he's touching her shoulder, he's touching her arm, like he's holding her face, and it's like, brother, it's actually insane.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah, because I remember, you know, after we read it the first time, we chatted about it, and then like seeing too that like on Book Talk and things like that, people started kind of pointing that out, and mind-blowing. Like, every season, damn it. Like,
it's very
just
ick.
All the time. Yeah. Ugh.
All right, now we get to talk about Xaden. Did you guys know that Xaden was going to be Violet's love interest, or did you guys think he was actually her enemy?
No, there wasn't a second that I thought he was actually an enemy. She was instantly like super attracted to him, and like she brings that up every time he like enters the room. For me, I think this is how you guys felt about Dane. Like I was just a bit underwhelmed because I knew so early on like what his role was going to be. Like there was never any tension for me between Xaden and Violet because it was so obvious that he was going to be like her love interest. He's so like YA male lead. And I say that I love Xaden. He has good moments, but like in the beginning I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. We're gonna move over to that side. That's fine.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for it every time. I fall for it every time. I see it coming. So like when you asked, it's like, did we know this is going to be the case? Like, or are they actually enemies? My answer to both is yes. Like, and you know what? As it should be. But yeah, no, I think I agree, Maddie. Like, it is pretty clear early on, but you know what? I'm here for it. And especially if it's a character like Xaden, because sometimes that happens and it's not the best written characters, but I love him, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. And I think, well, you find out like towards the end that Xaden has like allegedly loved Violet like since he first met her, basically. So I don't think this is a true enemies to lovers. Like you see it coming. They don't act like enemies. Like it's clear that they care about each other very early on. So I would say this isn't a true enemies to lovers, personally.
It's definitely not. And like honestly, it kind of made me annoyed that he said he loved her from the beginning, because like, give us something, you know? But like, I will say from Violet's perspective, she genuinely thinks that they're enemies, and he could, like, no matter what he does, he could literally have bought her like a heart of chocolates and a teddy bear on Valentine's Day, and she'd be like, they're probably poisoned. I just can't figure out, is he trying to kill me? So I at least liked that there was some of that tension that was a little bit like, come on, girl. But like, at least it was something that was like carrying on that plot line of like, he should not like you. It's true.
Yeah, you know what? I respect. She was not letting her guard down for nothing. She was like, I do not trust it. Is he fine? Yeah. Sure. Can he be trusted? Not so much. Not so much. I agree that the thing about him like being in love with her from the get-go is like, I don't like that.
Like a cop-out.
We didn't need that.
It cheapens it.
Like, it does.
And their chemistry was already so good. Like their dynamic, like their little like sarcastic little remarks towards each other and things like that. Like I just thought it was so cute, and I loved every bit of it.
Yeah, don't be in love with me from the get-go.
No,
work for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree.
What about side characters? Like, who was y'all's favorite side character?
Liam is an easy dub for me. I loved him. I loved his little like wood carving hobby. Like, it's so fucking cute. And low-key, this is potentially like a lukewarm take. When he was like outside the door or whatever, and she was going through, you know, her emotions with the dragons, which we'll get into later, there was a part of me that was like, let's go, girl, let's get Liam into this room, because like, I'm here for it. I love Liam. I think he's super fun and sweet and cute, and I was ready for the drama that would ensue, personally. So
yes,
Liam,
I wanted that too.
Liam ship was it for me. What was their ship name? I was like trying to do, no, I guess VM. I don't know.
VM. It doesn't have a good ring to it.
Let us know, Book Talk. Do you ship VM? Let us know. But yeah, I did like Rhiannon. I know that I think we'll get into that in a little bit, because I think that might be a contested take. But I liked Rhiannon. I think it's another like classic trope with these types of stories, where you got your bestie from day one, typically someone who you're going through the same trials and stuff with. So I was a big Liam fan. I also like Rhiannon. Obviously we hate Jack, on multiple levels. Draco Malfoy, but not cool at all. So yeah,
and annoying. My favorite was Taryn, who is kind of a main character, but I don't know, I guess he'd be classified as a side character. I just loved how he was like grumpy, and so he and Violet had a very grumpy sunshine dynamic going on, and I really loved that. Like I thought it was so cute.
It's honestly funny, because like Violet on her own is not sunshine, but compared to Taryn, she is sunshine. He's so grumpy that he makes her grumpy look like sunshine.
I also feel like that's one of the most unique uses of grumpy sunshine, like the grumpy sunshine trope, but it's me and my dragon. So
yeah. True. Well, and my favorite quote from Taryn throughout the book was like, basically Violet learns that her signet is lightning, and she can only use it when her and Xaden are like having an intimate moment.
Mhm.
And so Taryn says to Violet when she can't use her signet, he's like, "Should I get the wing leader?" And it's so
He's so
snarky and
sassy.
funny. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Our
love it.
sassy king.
He's so
Yes.
on it. I love him.
Big fan.
All right. So, do you guys want to talk about world building?
Let's do it.
I would love to. The
So
dragon
the story,
Hogwarts.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so besides a lot of great characters, we also, I think, really liked the setting of Basgiath War College, which, like, fun fact, I've had to learn how to say that about 3 times now. So I'm glad I think I've gotten it right. We'll see if that continues. But it's like we said, it's kind of like this sort of like dauntless Hogwarts. So if you were to compare, but yeah, it's their War College. So yeah, what did y'all think about Basgiath and like the world building?
I thought it was good. I think it's an interesting setting. I think it makes sense for like a war college. I like that it was more like, it felt more like a college than a high school, because it felt a lot more mature. It felt like there were stakes involved. You know, people are dying left and right, because of how dangerous all their activities are. And we're not even out in like the real world activities. So I was always interested to see like what the next day would bring, because it was continuously interesting, but it still felt like we're at school, so like nothing wild is happening. It's just like there's slowly unwinding pieces and threads happening.
Yeah, I agree. And I loved like I loved the stakes being high, just like you said. And I loved all of the fighting and training that went on, especially between Xaden and Violet. Like, like when they're sparring in front of everyone and he's trying to get all of her daggers. Like, I just love that scene. I loved all the sparring and training.
So good.
What about Gauntlet? What do you guys want to say about Gauntlet?
I blacked out the entire time. Yeah, I did not. I've retained 0 things from Gauntlet. It's like I just was like skimming the words, no meaning entering my brain until the one girl like fell and died, and then I was like, oh, something's happening.
Like, oh damn. Yeah, it's just Wipeout. Like it's honestly Wipeout. So that's why once I kind of figured that out, I'm like, or like what is it, American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah.
But like a combo of like that and Wipeout. So I don't know. It was not that cool. I was not about it. I just kind of skimmed.
Yeah.
Wipeout but deadly.
Yeah, literally.
Deadly.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Battle Brief was really cool. We kind of got to see Violet's like historian scribe mind a little bit more, and I thought, I really liked that.
I thought Battle Brief was fun. I definitely was more interested in like the sparring matches, but I think I'm such like a character girly that like the little side conversations and snippets that would always be happening during like the sparring matches where it's just like the people just like hanging around each other and just interacting kind of naturally are way more interesting to me than learning like the deep lore, although that's obviously like very important. But they gave each other good balance too.
Yeah. No, and I think Battle Brief, again, kind of like what you're saying, Kaylee, is like it shows that kind of scribe side of her, and I think along with her like poisoning people and then being really good at Battle Brief and having all this historical knowledge, it's like a good way of showing that, you know, these kind of warriors, there are a lot of different skills that go into being a warrior. And I think particularly for like a first year student, like you likely be so focused on like all the combat and stuff that you could be kind of like forget all the kind of tactical stuff and other skills that go into being a good fighter. And so I think it just shows kind of like her maturity and her skill kind of beyond just like her other, I guess, classmates or whatever they call them. So, yeah.
It was also a creative way to info dump a little bit. Like, I'm not saying I retained any of that information, but it was a creative way. So I don't know if it was effective, but creative, for sure.
Yeah. Right. 100%.
And there's also like all the siphons and powers and stuff, so we could talk about that. Like, what did you guys kind of think about the siphons? Siphons. Is that the right word?
Yeah. No, TBH. Okay. I'm trying to refresh my memory a little bit. Wait.
It's a signet.
Signet?
Yeah.
It's a signet. I was like, this feels wrong.
Siphoning is a signet that can happen.
Okay.
right? Because that's
I don't
this.
know why I get those words confused so easily.
I don't know. It's a signet, though,
All
right?
right. The
The S
signet.
word.
Yeah, the
Yeah, you
signet,
know.
which is basically just their powers. Their cool powers. Like they're like Super Rangers.
Yeah.
Power Rangers, not Super Rangers.
The Power Rangers. Dude. Power Rangers.
Oh
Dude,
no.
I thought it was cool. I will say that kind of tying back to Violet, like I don't know. I think some of the powers and things that she had, like the whole like lightning thing and all that, like I'm sure it's going to be a big player in Iron Flame, you know, the next book coming out soon and the rest of the series. So like I think there will be more that kind of reveals like why, you know, this is her particular power. I feel like I'm still missing a little bit of that in the first book. The connection isn't as clear to me. But I think
Except
it's cool.
it was really cool and really badass. So
Yeah, no, true. You make great points. But yeah, it being connected to like their personality in some way, I'm interested to see like how they kind of flesh that out in the next books.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
I definitely thought that her signet would be something like mental. Like it would be something like where she has some sort of like mind reading or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it was confusing for me that her signet was so like physical damage focused because she's just like not that kind of girly. Like I understand she's got like fire in her and she's like got the spice or whatever, but it didn't make the connection for me for her to have like a very offensive signet like that, and then also for it to be so similar to her mother's. I'm like, can we not be a little creative and like give her own thing? Because also my other thing with the signets is like they were a little hard for me to keep track of because they were so open. Like it seems like they can be literally anything. Like your signet could be not being able or like not sweating, you know, and like first of all, sign me up.
I was gonna say, I want that.
But like they were just so anything. Like Liam's was like being able to see far away or something. Like it's just it's not your typical.
I want that too though, girl.
No glasses.
I can't even see 3 feet away from me.
Don't sweat and actually have good vision. Like I'm there, you know?
Literally.
Yeah. Well, one of their signets was breathing underwater, which I thought was so cool. But also, when would that? I mean, that's not really that useful. Like, when are you going to need to swim really deep in the water and like be able to breathe under there?
Well,
I don't know.
See, okay, this is my thing, right? I think it's fun to have signets that seem not useful, like being able to just see far away or breathe underwater, and then having someone like Violet who's very clever think of a way to use her signet to get to the mission end, and giving her something that's just like, oh, you can zap somebody. I'm like, you're taking part of what I love about Violet away because she doesn't have to use her brain that hard to figure out a good way to use that signet. It's just zap the enemy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Xaden's power was also really cool. He had it fit with his like broody personality too, but he has a shadow power, which, you know, similar to Akatar with Asriel.
Yes.
They're both very broody male characters. So I thought it worked.
Yeah. And I did like with Xaden's, I can't remember if this was the same in Akatar, but like I like how he can kind of like make a little privacy bubble with his shadows and stuff. So it's not always like used offensively. Like it can also create like a space. I don't know. I guess I'm just mostly interested in creative uses of these powers because we've all seen the shadow power thing before. So it's like, give me something new, you know? And Xaden did. Xaden served. So we slay.
Yeah.
For sure. Point. Yeah. And I think too, like him being able to kind of like make it this kind of, like you said, Maddie, like not just offensive, but kind of like creating this little space also fits in with his personality too. Cause he can use it for more of an offensive thing, but he also like has a really like kind of sweet side, I think, as well. And so kind of using it for more like strategic things, like just having a closed conversation and stuff really makes sense. But
yep, exactly.
I like it. So
yeah. All right, let's talk about dragons. So Yeah, so basically, Violet has this thing called threshing, which is where the dragons choose her. The two dragons choose her. We've got Andarna and Taryn. Andarna's a feather tail dragon, which is really cool because feather tails have never been a part of threshing before. And Violet finds out later that it's because Andarna's not a full grown dragon yet, which I think Maddie has a little theory about that.
Yeah. I've okay, so this has been the like one random thing that has like perplexed me for the entire rest of my life probably. So the whole thing is that like no one knows what baby dragons look like, but because of Andarna, Violet finds out that they're feather tails, and that's why feather tails are so rarely seen, blah blah blah. Andarna is also a golden dragon, okay? And I went back through the battle brief. All right, I did my research. Let me know. Book Talk, let me know. Did I miss this? There are no other yellow or golden dragons mentioned that I found. So I was thinking maybe all the babies are golden. Maybe all the babies are yellow. And then when they grow up, they turn into like a different color dragon. Like one of her friends floated the idea that like maybe it was a baby orange dragon or something like that. However, if we look at the cover of Iron Flame, all right, it still shows Andarna as a golden dragon. And
interesting.
Listen. So I think she's still yellow or golden, which the girl boss part of my brain is like, well, duh. They've done so much marketing with like the black and gold dragon. Like it's becoming iconic and like necessary to this series. They're like, Rebecca, I'm sorry about your intentions, but like she's got to stay gold. But they're going to have to make that work. And then, you know, it's yet another, like, quirky dragon that Violet has that's like, oh, it's the only golden dragon in existence. Please do something else. Make it a good reason. Yeah. Please, God. Please.
Yeah. Because you said that, and on the cover for Iron Flame, like, she looks big, too, right? Like, she looks like an adult
She looks almost as big as Taryn. Like, her little icon to me.
Dude.
Huh. And at the end of the book, I think, is it Xaden that says, she overhears Xaden saying, like, oh, Andarna's fucking huge now.
She's gotten bigger. Yeah. Oh, dude.
So,
I'm so excited.
I have a lot of feelings about yellow dragons, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, like, that's a good point, too, that, like, all the lore of the dragons and, like, the different types of dragons and just kind of, yeah, like, and something I hadn't brought up is that Rebecca Yarros, I believe, has been more of a romance writer in the past. I think this is her first fantasy romance, if I'm remembering correctly. So I thought it was really impressive, like, how she wrote these dragons and kind of their interactions with each other, the different types of dragons, like all that kind of stuff, because the dragon aspect was, like, absolutely one of my favorite parts of this book. Just their different personalities and things like that. So
yeah.
I think she did.
And I liked how there was a little twist. Like, everyone knew that Andarna was going to choose Violet because she was like the different little quirky dragon, you know?
Yeah.
So we all saw that coming, but nobody saw Taryn coming.
Yes.
Which I thought was really, really well written.
Yeah. Like, the whole threshing, I think, was really, really fun.
Yeah.
I really liked that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what do y'all think about the bond dynamic, like, between, you know, a rider and the dragon? So, like, Violet and Taryn, Xaden and Zagael, Andarna. How did y'all feel about that?
I loved it. Like, I thought it was kind of, it's something we've seen before. Like, it's nothing new to us. You know, like in ACOTAR, they can speak mentally to each other.
Yeah.
But I still loved it. I thought it was a great way to, like, build their relationship. And have more dialogue between them, and I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like it's a necessary lever to have, so that you care about the dragons. They can show their personality, and you get that connection. And also, I think it's really fun that if the dragon is feeling like a very strong emotion, so is the rider. I mean, I ate that shit up.
One of the best scenes in the book, hands down. If you read it, you know, but since we spoil here, we're just going to get into it a little bit. When, let's just say, Taryn and Sigale are having a moment.
A date
and,
night.
A date night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great way. Yeah, absolutely. And then Violet and Xaden feel the emotions of that and talk about it. It's something that Xaden's clearly used to because he's been bonded to Sigale for a bit, but it's something like a new experience for Violet. And so then they have a moment, and it's so funny. I love it.
Moment.
A little moment.
Yeah. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's good content. It is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the dragons.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, that brings us to war games. So let's talk a little bit about that. Basically, it's where the group of rebel children, they think they're being sent to this thing called war games, which is just, I guess, like a mock war. But instead, the rebels are all grouped together and being sent to a real battle, which involves Venin and Wyvern. And this whole time, Violet thinks that Venin are this like mystical thing. And she thinks that the Wyvern Riders are actually the enemies. But Xaden has been like partnering with these Wyvern Riders and supplying weapons to them. And so she finds out that Xaden's like betraying her, and it's like this whole thing. Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. The last I don't even know how much it is, like 20% of the book, maybe not even, like it's
pretty
I feel like
short.
it picks up, yeah, honestly probably less than that. Like it picks up so much because you're just, Violet's getting like thrown all of these like like these tears in what she think are like reality, like and not being able to trust Xaden, and these things that she thinks are completely like fake or just rumored or like very real threats or just like things that she has to deal with outside of Basgiath. It's a lot within a very short period of time.
And I think too the betrayal aspect of it has so many different layers, because not only does she feel betrayed by Xaden because he didn't tell her what was going on or what he was doing, she also feels betrayed by Dane, because we come to find out like that Dane has been reading her memories and snitched on them, and that's why they're all in this like incredibly dangerous position in the first place. And then she also feels just betrayed by like the history, right? Because she's, at her heart, she's a scribe. So she feels like I may not know anything, but I know what the histories say, what the texts say, what's recorded, and I can trust that. And she leans on that throughout the entire book. And in this part, she finds out that, history is written by the winners, right? So she does not have the full picture. She cannot trust what she knows and what she's known her whole life. And for her, that's like destroying her entire foundation for like how she sees the world. So she's dealing with a lot of shit right here in this scene.
Through it, yeah.
For the last 15% of the book, our girl is going through it.
Yeah. I also just realized I got a detail wrong. It's not Wyvern Riders, it's Griffin Riders. So it's Venin Ride Wyvern. There's a lot of creatures towards the end.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit hard to keep up with. So sorry about that.
No, yeah. Well, and like, I will be honest too. So kind of getting into, okay, so with war games, she has like all these big revelations, and then you actually, she has to like decide, right, like whether she's going to stick with the rebels, because basically the rebels are effectively told like, hey, the city's about to get destroyed, and we're going to test your loyalties to see if you're loyal to us or to yourselves. And Violet chooses to stay with the rebels and fight. And so then we launch into this like massive battle sequence, which I don't know about y'all. I think it was very well written, but for me, I definitely was skimming. I was like, okay, there's a lot of details here that I don't know. I was skimming toward the end because I was like, okay.
Yeah. For me,
I didn't skim. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, for me, I was also in skim territory, there's so much action packed in that last like 15% of the book. There's so many different battles, and some of them are like more serious than others, and there's just a lot going on. And so by the time we get to this battle, which is maybe like the only one that really matters, I was kind of like battled out in such a short period. So I was like, just tell me like what happens and what's going on. Get me to the end kind of thing.
Yeah. I love big battle scenes. Like that's why I loved Priory of the Orange Tree and the prequel to that so much. So I read every bit of it. But I get what you guys are saying. Like I can see why you would want to just kind of know what happens, figure out Liam dies, and spoiler, and get to the end.
Yeah, I think.
And then,
sorry. I think the thing is for readers like Abby and I, it's like if it was spread out a little bit more, it would have been easier to deal with. But like we're saying, like this whole last chunk of the book, we found out about griffins, we found out about Wyvern and Venom, and like the whole thing going on with like Xaden and everything. And it was just like a lot to deal with in like a very short amount of time. So I think maybe that could have been written out slightly more gracefully, but also keeping in mind we only know what Violet knows, so it may not even be realistic because Violet is also getting pummeled with all of this information kind of at the same time. So it's kind of a trade-off sort of thing.
True. Yeah.
That Liam dying definitely hurts. So I will say I was kind of skimming a little bit, and then as soon as it becomes clear what's about to happen to him, I did read through all of that and felt that one very hard. Ow, big ow.
Yeah, that was gut-wrenching. I teared up.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. But I'm glad, and something we kind of, I think, talked about, I know, like as we were reading it around the same time too, is I do like that the stakes are high in this book, whether it's anything from like a training sequence and someone screws up and does something and gets hurt, or in this case obviously like a literal battle, a war, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, of course people are going to die, you're going to have these losses, and so I think certain fantasies do that the way they should. I think some of them don't have high enough stakes for the story at hand. So I will say, even though while like it hurt, it made sense that of course you're going to lose some big characters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in retrospect too, like, I probably think about books and media like in too much of a meta way, but it's oftentimes obvious when a writer is leading you to like get really attached to a character for then that character to like die off in some way or another. And in retrospect, I'm like, oh, of course it would be Liam, because like honestly, which again, this is a contested thing that we'll go over later, I don't give a fuck about Rhiannon. Like she could have died and I would have been like, whatever. But like Liam had so much charming stuff about him that it's like, oh yeah, of course he would be the one that we lose. That being said, although he is probably my favorite character in the entire book, because I also have beef with Violet sometimes, he needs to stay dead. I don't want resurrections in book 2. Let that man stay dead. Let it matter. You know, I don't want no funny shit.
Yeah.
No.
I hate like a resurrection. I don't even know if that's what they call it. Resurrection trope. Is that what we call it? Whatever it is. Like, no. Like
Sarah J. Maas does it best.
Yeah, you're getting added Sarah J. Maas. Even if I have had so much fun with ACOTAR, like, no.
Yeah. No, I love her books, but nobody really dies. No. Nobody dies.
No one really. The stakes are not that high.
Matter.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't even want to get into it. You can't write a whole book about a war when we know that you're not going to kill anybody.
It's not a war. Anywho.
But let's not do whom. So before we go, we do this thing where we each share one thing we're still poring over and one hot take from the book. So Abby, let's hear it.
Okay, so my pour over. What am I pouring over? So I kind of talked about this earlier, but I want to know why Violet's signet power is wielding lightning, and how we think that's going to tie into her mother's signet power in the future. So my prediction is that at some point in the series, maybe not in Iron Flame. I can't remember how many books Rebecca Yarros has said this is going to be, but at some point, Violet and her mom, is she a general? Is that right? Yeah, general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna have beef. They're gonna fight it out. And I think it's gonna be a really epic storm battle of some sort. So, still find it weird that that's Violet's signet power, but I think there's a reason. And then my hot take is that the whole, when we were talking about signets earlier, the whole like mind reading signet being a death sentence. So there's a character who can read minds and who is killed for it. That whole thing is really weird to me. I know that like, sure, that could be liability, but I also think it could be a really big asset. So I don't know. I feel like that was not fully fleshed out. Maybe that'll get revisited again at some point as we're kind of like learning more about the real motives of Basgiath and just in their kind of kingdom and world in general. But I thought it was weird. That's all.
My theory on that is that it would have been like a huge plot hole if they let them live, because they would be able to read the minds of the instructors and figure out that Venom are real, because apparently like they know that, and the general, like her mom knows that. We find out. So yeah, it would have been, I think it would have led to a plot hole if they had stayed alive. Yeah. But why, I don't get the point of really throwing it in there then, and not just like leaving out mind reading altogether. But
no, because I still don't, I think you're probably right, but also I still don't get why they didn't like kill Dane. Because he can do essentially the same thing. He just has to touch you, and it seems like it doesn't, like, we're led to believe it has to be like a very obvious touch, and then we come to realize that it's not accurate. Like, it can be a pretty casual touch that he can do. So he could equally find out just as much sensitive information. I mean,
and I think he probably knows. He probably knows all that stuff, but he's so loyal.
He's a bootlicker.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and I think that's probably what it gets at too. Is, well, anyway, that's a whole other thing. I'm interested to see like if they get into that at all in the future books, or if, like you said, Kaylee, it was just kind of a way to like patch up a potential plot hole, or if they get into it at all. I hope they get into it, but that's fine. Yeah.
Well, my hot take, which we kind of touched on this earlier, but I don't think Rhiannon's like a full character. I don't even think she's a side character. Like, I think she's just unnecessary to the story. I think she serves the purpose of being the opposite of Violet and really good at everything. She knows she wants to be a dragon rider and Violet doesn't. She wants to be a scribe. So she serves as Violet's opposite, but I don't think she like had any personality or anything that made me feel attached to her at all.
Oh man, I'm pro Rhiannon. I agree that like I don't think she's as fleshed out as she could be, but I don't know. Maybe it's even just, maybe I don't have a good reason. I don't have a good reason to back it up, but I do like Rhiannon.
Yeah, you can like Rhiannon.
Fair enough.
I was rooting for Rhiannon when she was sleeping with everyone in the school. I was like, let's go, girl. But it just never got developed past that. So it's like, I get that you're hot and everyone wants to sleep with you, and I support you. But you got to give me a little bit of something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I support it.
I agree.
Good for her.
And then the thing I'm still poring over is I want to know what dragons gain from like pairing up with a rider during threshing. Like, what's in it for them? You know, because it seems like it's like it's a lot of like emotional strain on them if their rider dies. So it's like, why would you want to risk that? You know?
Yeah. I remember at some point in the book they talk about how the dragons have a vested interest because they want to protect their breeding grounds from the griffins, like their babies and their eggs and stuff. However, they're pretty strong, so I don't necessarily understand why they couldn't just do that themselves. So I would also like more information on like how the alliance between the dragons and the humans happened, and like, I don't know. I just want more details. It's very, very fascinating because also the dragons are very clearly in charge. Like, as much as like the generals and stuff would like to pretend like they have power over what happens, the dragons have the final say, and like that's the end of it because they could kill them all instantly. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, Maddie, what's your hot take?
Yeah, my hot take. Okay, so I think, how to say, Violet's too overpowered. Violet was a fun character because she was the underdog. She sucked at everything. She had to think her way through stuff. And then that immediately changes after Threshing because she has 2 dragons, which I was attempting to tolerate. And then her signet power is also like wildly overpowered, and like they're like, oh my god, it's the strongest signet power in the mini. It's so rare. And so like I'm done. Like it's not interest. There's no tension anymore because she has so many people around her that are so powerful. And also she has Xaden, who's incredibly powerful, and Sigale, who is also incredibly powerful. So like, she has very little to kind of struggle against outside of like one-on-one combat, which in theory we may or may not see more of because she's no longer in the school. So I'm a little meh on that.
Oh, or like the saddle that they get her to. Remember that? Like, which like if it's just something like that, because I think if it weren't for things like her super powerful signet and everything too, like it could make sense where, if she can otherwise like handle being with Taryn and is like powerful enough to have this dynamic with Taryn, like, okay, like, yeah, we'll get her a saddle. So like if she's kind of a smaller build and stuff, so she can safely be a dragon rider. But like, yeah, I agree with you. There's too many, kind of like thrown out a bone, like, yeah.
And the fact that Andarna is also going to give her a signet power, like, even if it is a more supportive signet power, she still has 2 signet powers. Like, they're going to have to do a lot of stuff to not make that just, like, overpowered, or she's going to have to make weird choices to not use those signet powers in situations to create more tension. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
I would disagree just because I feel like she needed a lot of accommodations. Like, I think the saddle was an accommodation. I don't think it was something that made her more powerful. And I think like she still can't do one-on-one combat minus her power. She can't do any one-on-one combat without poisoning her enemy. Like, she's not very strong. Just little things like that. I think she needs accommodations in order to be all powerful. So without Xaden, without Sigale, without Taryn, like, is she really all that powerful?
Well, sure, but then you have to get through Sigale, Taryn, Andarna, Xaden to get to like, okay, this is a real tension situation. Like, we really don't know what could happen.
Well, and I think it's because like, she was set up so well early on of like having to be super resourceful and stuff. So I agree, Kaylee, with like particularly with the saddle. Like, I think that makes sense. I'm just I think along with like the lightning and everything, it just that really resourcefulness that we had from her and kind of having to fight her way through finding ways to be powerful is that tension, like you said, is kind of lost. So
fair.
So
yeah.
That's my hot take. But my pour over, my crazy woman theory. Okay, so in Battle Brief, we're rolling it back. We learn that Taryn, that ends up being Violet's dragon, obviously, his previous rider was Nowlin, and Nowlin died in one of the like final battles. Ends up being the battle that Brennan also died in, quote unquote. And Nowlin actually died trying to resurrect Brennan using his power. And he like overheated. What is the word that they use? Is it overheated? I can't remember. He died.
I don't know.
I can't remember what it is, but I know what you're talking about.
He exerted too much energy. He went past like where he was supposed to go past, whatever. And the professor tells Violet that he did that because everyone wants to get in with the Sorengales. They're very like important in the war community. So it's like good to have your name in there. He wanted to save Brennan and have like all this glory. Now, that's nonsense to me. I think that Brennan and Nowlin were in love, that they were fighting together. They were in Achilles and Patroclus type relationship. Okay, Brennan went down. Nowlin said, not my lover, not today, Satan, and he resurrected him, and then maybe Nowlin died. But then with Nowlin's death, maybe that's what ticked Brennan over to the revolution, because he was like, I can't deal with this anymore, this is crazy, whatever.
Was that British? Was that supposed to be British?
Yeah, can we throw that one back real quick?
It was distraught Irish. I don't know. It was really just like in my brain what they sound like.
You just said something dramatized quickly.
Yes, very that. Yeah, like old Shakespearean, but bad. So yeah, that's my theory. And then I also think potentially Nowlin could be alive. I kind of think he's dead, because I don't know how Taryn could bond with an additional rider if his original rider was still in existence. But also maybe that's how she's not so overpowered, because Taryn has to now split his energy between providing powers to both her and Nowlin, and then it would be fun if he got pulled into the telepathic communication circle with her and Xaden. There's a lot of things. It would be a lot, but it would be interesting at least.
True.
Well, and it's like, we've already broken the rules by having her bond with two dragons. Like, who's to say a dragon can't bond with two riders? Like, yeah, fuck the rules. Yeah. Who's to say? So,
yeah.
Oh, I would love a tragic, love story like that like has propelled part of the revolution. I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
Good theory.
That's it.
All right. What were your guys' ratings and favorite parts of the book? And then we'll close out.
Okay. So for rating, I think I would have to go with I originally said 4. I think I'm going more 4.5 now out of 5. It's grown on me even more with time. I think this is great. I'm really excited to see how this series continues.
I think for me, I originally rated it as a 4.5, and I would say it's probably like a 4. I have less love for it as time has gone on a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite effect. I just think there were a lot of missed opportunities, but still a really great read. Still something I would read again. Like, I say that with love, light, and respect. I'm just a hater. So.
Fair enough.
I'd give it a 4.5 now. I originally gave it a 5 because I was on the high of just loving this book so much. But now I'd give it a 4.5 because of all the things we've talked about in this episode. But I do love the book. I think it ticks all the boxes. The romance really was done really well for me. It's clear that Rebecca Yarros is a romance writer, and I thought she did new adult really well as well. So yeah, 4.5. What about favorite parts?
I was a big fan of the threshing. I still think it's a really fun scene. For her to have two dragons and the way it kind of unfolds. Big fan of the threshing.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely the moment where Violet and Xaden both escape away from Sigale and Taryn's strong emotions, and they interact in the forest, I guess, in the woods, and they have this good banter that's oh, it would be calamitous if you kissed me. Oh yeah, it would be disastrous, and it's just a good time all around. So that was definitely the highlight for me.
That was one of my favorite parts, and my other favorite part is kind of similar, but it was when basically Violet's oh, you're not going to fall in love with me? Well, we're not going to hook up anymore. And then they're in the cafeteria and she's sending images of them hooking up to Xaden's mind, and he starts choking on his food.
Yes.
I just think that part is so funny, and it really shows Violet's personality. She's oh, I'm going to mess with him, and I loved it.
It was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a fun dynamic. Yeah, I love that one too.
Yeah. Love it. Okay.
So what about next book predictions?
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
What you think, girl?
All I can think about is Brennan and Nowlin. That's it. The head empty. Other than that, that's all I got.
I just think we're gonna get a lot more background on the dragons, like, and I don't know, just more dragon politics, basically.
Please.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, big time. I think that Violet's gonna have to go back to Basgaia for some reason, and I think we're gonna see where like Rhiannon's loyalties lie. So maybe we'll get more Rhiannon development in the next book. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm holding out. Okay, I have to fight for my girl. I feel like Violet has to go back for some reason, and maybe we'll see if Rhiannon's gonna join as well, or maybe she's loyal more to Basgaia. And yeah. That's what I think.
I think that also opens up like an interesting case for like what Mira will decide to do, which is Violet's sister, who is very like following in her mother's footsteps, especially when she finds out that not only Violet but Brennan is on the other side, but Mira is very like black and white, like I know what I'm doing, like I'm fighting for the cause, whatever. So I think it'll be like a great source of conflict for her, and I don't know how it'll be written. Like maybe she'll stay on the other side, and that'll just be how it goes.
I bet she will. I bet she will.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's my.
I think she will at first, but then she'll come over to the good side.
Yeah, eventually. Surely. Unless.
Who's to say?
All
right.
That's it.
Yeah. Have we all said our piece? Any final words? Last thoughts? No.
All she wrote.
That's all she wrote. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on our episode for Fourth Wing. Please read along with us for the upcoming episodes on Bridge Kingdom and Heartstopper Volume 1. You can also stay up to date with us with the latest news on Instagram or TikTok by following us everywhere at Spill the Novel Tea. And please let us know while you're there. What have you been poring over after reading Fourth Wing, and what is your hot take? We would love to know. And also, unfortunately, no Dane fans allowed.
Nope.
We're in remission. Okay, we're learning. We're better now. No
Get
Dane
booted.
fans.
Yeah. We're done.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.